You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the It's Always Draft Season podcast, part of the Packernet Podcast Network. Jake Shervink with you guys. And the 2024 NFL Draft is over. It shows up real quick and it ends in a hurry, and it stinks because it's a lot of fun. Of course, it was a great week. Hope you all enjoyed the live shows. You know that was a lot of fun to join on day 3. Packers did well. I think we're going to talk about them a lot more in depth later this week on this show. But first, what I wanted to do was to talk about the teams that potentially won or lost the 2024 NFL Draft. Obviously, the draft is a lot of projection, right? There are a lot of grades that go into this. There's all that stuff, but we really don't know until a few years down the road. So we're going to kind of project a little bit. And I think that's going to be the way that we're going to approach this kind of draft wrap-up a little bit and kind of get into more down the line this week. So there'll be a bevy of shows there. Really quick, I think that when you look at who won, it's easy for a lot of teams to just, you look at the consensus board, blah, 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 who did a nice job staying by the board and all that. And I think that's a good way to look at it, I guess, based on what your evaluations are. Right, that's how you can base it on, but I think we just kind of went in this direction of sorts where we just kind of were like, all right, when you look at the body of work here and what they needed to do and how they executed that plan, I think that's kind of the direction we went. So there are 7 teams that I really liked. There's 4 that hinge on some things, and then there's a few more that were down the list where I go, I've got some questions. So let's start at the top with the teams that did really, really well, in my opinion. I think we got to start with Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think there's been some pushback out there about Pittsburgh, specifically from PFF talking about it was just kind of like, oh, Pittsburgh's good because it's value, and everybody sees them as steals based on what they got, and it's like, not really. I think Peyton Wilson, perhaps, maybe you could look at as a steal. And Kevin Cole kind of went into this and was like, well, steals aren't a real thing, right? How the NFL values guys is generally what you should be looking at. And I think that, the fantasy community has jumped on that, right, with draft capital being an important part of the evaluation process for a lot of their work, which that's fair. I think with Pittsburgh, it's just like they're building what, they're building the identity of where these guys came from, right? Omar Khan, Andy Weidel especially coming from Philly. It's like, well, they want to get better in crucial areas of this game. And, you can look at reaches or steals or whatnot, but Pittsburgh's going to come punch you in the face quite a bit this season. And this isn't to say all the rookies are going to be great right away. But the fact that they, now the past couple drafts, have gone with Broderick Jones, which I'm not factoring into this, but it's just a note with it. And then they go Troy Fautanu, Zach Frazier, and Mace McCormick. Man, are you kidding? This is a way to completely overhaul offensive line. Because for those who don't remember, Mason and I sat here 2 years ago after the draft, and we're kind of like, all right, what the heck, Pittsburgh, figure your offensive line out. Like they drafted a QB and then didn't do anything else with the offensive line and just let it be. And it didn't work. The commitment to offensive line is why this draft stands out. Just the idea of, okay, McCormick doesn't have to have one of the 2 guard spots to start with to begin the year. Right? He doesn't have to. You can put James Daniels there, right? Like there are going to be options for them at guard. But Fa'utanu and Broderick Jones is great, and then you add Zach Frazier, who's probably starting right away. Now, you could argue maybe Frazier and McCormick aren't the greatest fits for Arthur Smith's wide zone stuff, but I think, Frazier's a competent enough athlete to do that. Fa'utanu's a tremendous mover, so is Broderick Jones. And so you've built those 3 positions pretty well for this, and have to commend them for that. McCormick's a bruiser, so is Frazier. Right, Fa'utanu's not afraid to, chop block and throw those cut blocks out there. I should say not a chop block, but he throws those cut blocks out there. He's tremendous mover, impressive, quick sets, hand placement, balance, flexibility, right? Like he is the complete package. He falls to 20, I think, because of the knee issue. Pittsburgh takes advantage. Now, Roman Wilson, I think why I like it is because there's been rumblings about Pittsburgh acquiring another receiver, which perfect. You get 2 guys out on the boundary. Roman Wilson running, over routes and taking advantage there with that type of sustained speed across the middle of the field is going to eat on play action. And I think that's going to be a big part of Arthur Smith's offense, of course. So Wilson in that role as the slot kind of just feasting over the middle of the field makes perfect sense for them. I don't imagine he's going to end up playing Z. If he does, I'm a little more concerned about the deployment. But if he's playing slot, like that is awesome. So for Pittsburgh, I think it's just what they've done is they're betting low, right? This is low acquisition costs of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. If one of them hits, excellent. They're in business. If they don't, Pittsburgh has built a really good foundation for whoever steps in, Dak Prescott, ? Or a draft or someone you draft, where it's like they're stepping into a really tremendous situation in Pittsburgh, at least offensively, right? And they've built the defense pretty well. Peyton Wilson, if he stays healthy, he could be a force out there. Logan Lee's a fun athletic upside type of swing for Pittsburgh. They've got Keanu Benton there. They've got the 2 studs on the edge. And Joey Porter Jr. Like they are built to, once the quarterback is full go, they're built to contend. They are. They've done a really, really good job. So we move on. Let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers, who I think a lot of people are, is it going to be tackle? Is it going to be receiver? Obviously, receiver felt a little bit out of the cards because of who's running the show: Joe Hortiz, Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman. They talked a lot about trenches. Joe Alton, Rashawn Slater is going to be awesome. It really, really is. And could they have done a little bit more on the offensive line part of things? Absolutely. But Alton Slater are going to be potentially as good of a duo as you're going to find out there. And that's important for this team to get themselves back on track. I like what they did at receiver. I think Alt McConkey is a good start because, you could have gone like Neighbors in Rosengarten. Do you like that more? I feel like I like the more sure thing, tremendous upside, even as a quote-unquote safe pick at 5 in Alt more because McConkey's going to be a great separator. Him and Herbert with timing routes are just going to be excellent because Herbert's going to be able to anticipate. McConkey's going to get to his spot on time, get through the break point really efficiently. That pair is really exciting, and I can't wait to see that happen on the field. I think defensively it was fine, right? Junior Colson, I think, gives you, potentially in a couple seasons, a true veteran leadership presence at middle linebacker. Obviously a Michigan ad, of course. Justin Aboigbe is interesting because he's kind of more multiple, right? He plays with his hair on fire. He's strong at the point of attack. That's a nice guy to have in the room to be kind of alignment, versatile. Cam Hart's interesting. Maybe he plays safety, maybe he plays corner, but he's got good football IQ, and he plays physical. I like the idea of supplanting McConkey with Brendan Rice, Cornelius Johnson. Cornelius Johnson's got some deep threat ability. So does Brendan Rice. He's more of a height, weight, speed guy. Brendan Rice doesn't particularly have the route tree mastered very well. Johnson maybe a little, but I think those two are guys where you let McConkey do that kind of work in the middle of the field, short intermediate. You let him take care of that, but he has some deep threat ability as well. But you let Rice and Johnson Rice be a bigger body right down the field, and Cornelius Johnson a deep threat as well. So I like that overall, and I think Kamani Vidal could start. I think he could start, and we might not be talking about it enough, but I am really excited to see how Vidal operates with this offense in particular, because I think you're going to get powerful runner, quick cuts, and overall just, I think, somebody who's just going to show up and work his butt off truly, truly every day. And when it comes to, it feels like he can be as sudden and flash the processing skills. I know Matt Waldman has comped him to kind of on the spectrum of a DeAndre Swift, Jalen Warren, MJD type, which I really like. He's upright a little bit, but I do think I think if you have a diverse run game, which I think Roman's going to put in place, I think Vidal's going to be able to thrive there. I really do. Just don't be shocked when he's the starter in September. Maybe a little tip there for your fantasy drafts or dynasty drafts if you have them. Arizona Cardinals. We got to talk about these guys for sure. Might be on an island here, and that's okay. I'm fine being that. I love what they're doing offensively. I think they could have added more offensive line-wise. However, they do add Isaiah Adams and Christian Jones. Love the Christian Jones swing late. I think there's something to work with there. Had a really nice Senior Bowl week. Quick feet, just need to get the hand placement, everything working well in that direction. You have Jonah Williams there who might be able to play multiple spots. Isaiah Adams might as well. He's played left tackle, left guard for Illinois. But what I like about Adams is he is physical. He is a mauler in the run game, especially when you get him at guard. Combine that with adding Tip Ryman as a blocking tight end, which eases up, the pressure maybe you put on McBride to be that multiple, combo tight end, and just kind of let him work a lot more as a receiving guy over the middle of the field. But you still get the benefit of McBride playing tough and having that tenacity where, that duo out of 12 is going to be really nice. Connor runs the ball really well. Michael Carter showed that ability. And then you add Trey Benson. Powerful, force missed tackles, home run threat at 216 pounds. That commitment, I think, by Arizona to say, okay, Drew Petzing, here's what we want you to do. We want you to be in 12 a lot. We'll get you the two tight ends that you can flex out. Tip Ryman's a great bet because of the athleticism, right? The testing was good, athletic tight end. See what you have there rather than, swinging on someone who didn't test well. So I like that. Plus, you have Christian Jones and Isaiah Adams adding to that offensive line, playing tough. You really could two tight end, flex them out wide, get teams into tough situations personnel-wise, still be able to run it effectively, and you have your two trump cards. You have Trey McBride over the middle of the field. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. I really think Arizona built something strong here, and that's not even talking about defensively. Max Melton competes his butt off in press. Elijah Jones is really good in press. Dadrian Taylor-Demerson's a playmaker on the back end. I mean, top to bottom, these guys are I'm really thrilled with how Arizona took advantage of the heavy draft capital they had. And they're building an identity. They're building an identity of smash mouth 12 personnel stuff with a trump card and Marvin Harrison. Defensively, they didn't even mention Darius Robinson and Xavier Thomas. Xavier Thomas, a lot of pedigree, high recruit, has flashed that impressive ability as a pass rusher. Darius Robinson can be flexible on your defensive line. This is top to bottom one of my favorites. And I love what Arizona did here. Okay. There's 4 more, of course, that are on the, I think, won this thing. The Cincinnati Bengals. I just think their start was so good. And I know Marius Mims is the real projection. This is where you maybe could look at the Bengals as win or lose based on how the Marius Mims turns out. Because if a Marius Mims hits, they're going to be good at offensive line, at least offensive tackle for quite some time. He might not play this year. And that's why you have to look at it, from a bigger picture, longer point of view here with a Marius Mims, but he might not start this year. But you get a run defending defensive tackle in Chris Jenkins. And if Jermaine Burton can keep his head on straight, he's going to be better than a lot of guys that went ahead of him. He really is. I truly believe that. Unlocking things as a route runner, plenty of elevation ability to catch point, vertical threat. He could be really dangerous in this offense with Joe Burrow. The McKinley Jackson pick was fun and was meh, kind of. I don't like that as much. Josh Newton, Cedric Johnson, they tried some things on the defensive side. Love the Matt Lee pick at the end for them in the 7th, where center who can maybe develop into a starter for them. But what I really liked, Eric All, Tanner McLaughlin. I think one of those 2 hits, and they become an effective tight end in that scheme. And now you have, if Burton and one of those 2 tight ends are all in and they make it work, there are going to be a lot of threats on this team. Mims, Burton, and one of the tight ends. If you get those 3, and Jenkins is a solid player, you've done your job. You've won this thing. So I really do like what Cincinnati did. I like the Rams, and I'm not afraid to say that. I think they did a really nice job. I know they wanted to go get Brock Bowers, but what did you need to do? Aaron Donald retires. What do you need to do? Did they do the best job at defensive tackle? Personally, I didn't love it, but I love the commitment because what you're getting, Jared Verse, explosion to power, powerful rusher. He's going to devastate guys at the point of attack. He's a really good run defender as well. So I like the first selection. Braden Fisk is a rotational pass rusher who provides plenty of juice. You got Verse and Fisk playing together. I love that. Brennan Jackson, I think, is a little underrated at edge. I think he can provide them some value in the rotation as well. And Tyler Davis is a good run defender for Clemson. Powerful displacement stuff where he is pushing guys backwards and affecting the run from jump. So I like that as well. Those 4 picks along the defensive line really liked. Not to mention Cam Kinchens. If cleans up the tackling, you've seen the playmaking ability that Kinchens has. And then you add almost a Kyron Williams clone, maybe a better version pre-injury in Blake Corum, who, if they're going to run more power stuff, which I think they are with their center look, or their guard look, of Jackson, Avila, and Dotson. You get Corum pressing the line of scrimmage to bounce out, processing skill set, bowling ball type of build, good through contact, sudden guy, plenty of burst, combined with Kyron Williams, who's already shown a lot of that. Your running back duo is really set. Jordan Whittington blocks his butt off, makes catches in traffic. That's a nice depth add for them. And then, Bo Limmer at center might be one of the great picks in the draft, honestly. One of my favorites. 6th round for the Rams. 41st pick in the 6th round. Bo Limmer, potential starting center. And then KT Leviston from Kansas State, who can be versatile in his deployment along the offensive line. Top to bottom, Rams. I'm standing O for you guys. I loved it. I really did love it. I know there was corner need. I know there was tackle need. Tackle might be the one thing that keeps this draft from really hitting the ceiling. I'm not concerned about them finding a successor for Stafford. You're all in. You're all in, and you're committing to it. And, it's not the Packer model. That's okay. Like Tampa Bay went all in with Tom. They won. Mission accomplished. You have some time now to rebuild. And that's where they're at. And that's okay. I'll take that. 2 teams who I think did a nice job of just kind of going, yeah, we need this, so let's go get this. Detroit. You were shredded by every team through the air in pretty much every game you played. So the goal was to get corner help. And I think that, trade for Carlton Davis, cool. Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw Jr. If Rakestraw is playing the slot and Branch goes to safety, or if Rakestraw is just a backup slot to Branch, cool. Sion Vaki apparently is going to be a running back. I know he played safety, but you get Terrion Arnold, who could really be that dude in the secondary. I'm fine with the Giovanni Manu and Sione Vaki swings in the fourth, but they come back and get Makai Wingo, disruptive 3-tech, and Christian Mahogany, who's a solid guard, in the sixth. So Detroit, nice job there. The only thing they're missing is an edge to pair with Aiden Hutchinson, which, again, you're not going to do everything in one draft. It's hard to do. Even the Rams, so I went top to bottom, they didn't get a corner or an offensive tackle. So Philly, I think, same thing. They needed to get better in the secondary. They did it. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. DeJean's best fit is going to be in that defense. That style of defense, playing slot or on the boundary, that's going to suit him the best. And Quinyon as well, that's going to be a phenomenal fit there. They got some interior offensive line guys, so that's good. They keep swinging there, which was nice. Jeremiah Trotter, I wasn't the biggest fan of. There were plenty of big fans of his. If he hits in the 5th round, corner and linebacker were saved in this draft, and they desperately needed that. I think Shipley provides some nice passing down work as well at running back. So there you go. And they swung twice at wide receiver. They didn't have to do it. Actually, no, they did because their depth is pretty bad. So Anaya Smith, slot guy. Johnny Wilson, big slot guy, tight end. Interesting. So those are your teams that I thought did really, really well. I think you could throw Indy in here. In my opinion, it was a strange one, but like if Goncalves and Bordolini hit, offensive line gets a nice boost. Jalen Carlisle and Jalen Simpson at safety, they needed help there. And then they go get Latu and Adonai Mitchell, two players who were top 25 for me in this draft. They got them, at 15 and then at 52, I believe. So Adonai Mitchell, I think, plays right away. I know there's conflicting, opinions on that. I think he's already better than Pierce personally, and I think you have a really nice trio there. So I do like what Indy did as well. So let's take an early break, and we're going to get to, I think, 8 or 9 more teams. The 4 volatile ones will be a lot of fun. Let's take the break now.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. We all have smartphones, and we all know they're pretty amazing, but they also can be amazingly distracting, especially when we're around other people. So US Cellular wants us to reset our relationship with our phones by putting down our phones for $5. That's right, a company that sells phones wants us to put down our phones. And to see what we find, learn more at uscellular.com/built for us.
Have you ever experienced turbulence on a flight and wondered why?
And you can see all the terrain around you. You've got no issue with visibility or anything?
No, everything's PG.
Maybe you've sat on the tarmac for hours wondering why your plane isn't moving.
Well, we're outside here. They're saying the ramp is closed. They won't let us park because of Air Force One.
Listen in on the conversations between pilots and air traffic controllers on the Air Traffic Out of Control podcast.
510 declaring an emergency. There's smoke in the cabin. I need to make a landing right now on 31 left.
We have the most interesting, wild, and funny ATC recordings you will ever hear. Check out Air Traffic Out of Control wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
All right, back here on It's Always Draft Season. So we got to talk about these because obviously I think these 4 make so much sense in terms of potential winner or loser, but I think for different reasons. I think there's a lot that hinges on the quarterbacks with these teams, of course, because that's going to make or break. But there were other parts too that may not break them, and it can keep them in the window of like, all right, our team is solid. We just need the guy. Let's start with the Patriots, because I think this is very volatile, but with so much potential here. So the Patriots go get Drake May, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, which I love Baker as a player. I think it was an excellent pick on day 3, 10th pick on day 3. Okay, that trio, Polk. Even though I didn't love Polk's film, I think at the catch point, he's got some acceleration to win deep and after the catch. Didn't love the plan with the release and route running ability. I think that's got work to do, but he can be QB best friend at the catch point, adjusting the football, making plays through contact. And Javon Baker should be a technician. He might be the X immediately. It'll be interesting if Baker plays like outside with Bourne, and then you put Polk in the slot, which I think could really help your run game as well. In 11, Caden Wallace is interesting. Layden Robinson's obviously high recruit, right? Didn't really completely live up to the potential. He's an aggressive run blocker, but I do think like the pass pro is the struggle with him. But Wallace is interesting because he's smooth. He really is smooth. And if he hits as an offensive lineman for them and they get one of the receivers too, I think they're well on their way to building this thing for May. I would not start May right away. I would leave it alone, especially behind this unit that they have. It's going to be young, but you build another year, and I think in 2025 we could be talking about the Patriots in some pretty glowing terms. So Patriots, we'll see. Volatility, but could hit in a big way. The Commanders, I loved their day 2. Their day 2, even Luke McCaffrey aside, like who could be a big slot, be a nice piece there. Johnny Newton, Mike Sainristil, Ben Sinnott, Brandon Coleman. That is awesome. That is awesome. Johnny Newton should not have been there. Okay, Sainristil is a dominant slot player. Sinnott's going to help you in multiple ways. Brandon Coleman could help you in multiple ways. Tackle, guard. I think he had some of the best film at offensive line in the entire class, honestly. So you get all of that. Jordan McGee from Temple, interesting linebacker to add. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, a lot of people thought was a really nice value where they got him at defensive end, edge. So, but it's just all hinges on Daniels. Can Daniels be good enough under pressure when pockets condense a little bit quicker than they did at LSU? Can he handle that? Can he be pressure to deliver instead of pressure to sack and pressure to scramble? That's going to be the big. That's going to be the defining piece of this draft, really. And all of the quarterback drafts are, and that's not to say that we're not going to look at these from every point of view, but like the Commanders could build something really good here. They a lot of signings in free agency that Dan Quinn wanted to bring his guys in, Biadish, Dorrance Armstrong, right? They brought in Bobby Wagner, so like they're kind of building for this thing a little bit now, a little bit later. It's one where if everything hits but the QB, it's kind of like, okay, we can salvage this. We see the vision, right? You see the vision, ownership. Let us get the right QB one more time, and we'll have this thing cooking. If Daniels hits, truthfully, it doesn't quite matter what happens the rest here. I think Coleman will be good for them. I think that's my one biggest bet. If I were to bet on somebody being good, it's Coleman or Sainristil. But like Newton working with Allen and Payne, man. Commanders could be big winners in 2 years, or be all set like Pittsburgh, and you have to get the QB right this time. So they're very volatile. The Vikings are another one that's really, really, really volatile to the point where like you can easily see this thing crashing and burning and Kwesi out of the building very quickly. I don't think I love the offensive line picks on day 3, to be honest. Rouse and Juergens, yeah. McCarthy and Turner are big, big swings. They are big swings. McCarthy, probably the biggest one. And, you know, it's going to be a tough... If he doesn't hit, it's over, I think, for Kwesi. It is. Because it's... And again, they weren't in a position where, you know, there was interest in McCarthy. I commend them for not selling the farm to go up and get him, letting the draft come to them a little bit. But McCarthy and Turner are your 2 big swings. Same with Kyrie Jackson. He's still a big swing as well, and even in the 4th round. And you've got a lot of history already, even as a younger GM with the DB position that just has not worked to this point. Booth, Scene, like it's just, and even before him, the DBs. Right, it's just their track record has stunk. Kyrie Jackson's a big swing. Turner's a massive swing as well. And man, McCarthy's got a good situation offensively though. O'Neal, Darisaw, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. He's got the environment. So there won't be any like, oh, what if McCarthy had a better? No, that's not it. If he can't do it, he's not the guy. Period. So Minnesota in a very volatile place just because they picked a kicker and they picked a D tackle from Texas A&M Commerce. So across the board, not that thrilled. Could be crash and burn. But McCarthy it hinges on, of course. Now the Atlanta Falcons are in the same boat. Of course they are. Because if this thing works, everybody on planet Earth was dogging this draft, including myself. After 2 days, I was like, man, there were just some questionable this over this decisions. There really were. And even when you go like by round, which I kind of went through it and was kind of like, all right, you know, again, Penix aside, like they know that they want their plan in place for that, which is again, totally fine. I understand it. Man, I just feel like there were potentially better options in a lot of spots where they needed to get better. And, you know, the Penix thing aside, like we've talked about it ad nauseum at this point. It's, if you were going to do that, why didn't you take McCarthy to sit for 3 years instead of Penix? But again, the good argument is like, again, is Cousins... This is the problem, though. It's like, okay, well, is Cousins going to be healthy, right? Like, we would like someone to, you know, Penix who might be able to step in. Well, it's like, well, if you're worried about Cousins that much, why did you sign him to so much money? Well, obviously, they had to prove to ownership like that. Fontenot and them are still like, okay, you can still believe in me, because I'm sure Arthur Blank is getting very impatient at this point. So again, it's all understandable when you look at it from the owner perspective of like desperation to win. But as far as team building, Aurora Rowe, I'd like him over Johnny Newton. Oh, I don't know. I think over other guys, like if you were to sell me on Aurora Rowe over Jenkins, over Michael Hall, I would listen to that, because I think like Aurora Rowe has had pass rush production at defensive tackle, and those two, at least more than those two that I mentioned. And he's a really good run defender. But to take him over Newton when you wanted, you know, your defense needs to just get more juice up front. And I think they still did it, right? Dorless has that. Trice has that. So like Aurora Rowe, Trice, Dorless looks really nice. I don't know. Adisa Isaac plus Newton plus Dorless would be really good too. Bertrand, McClellan, Casey Watt. Yeah. So they went a lot of defense, and they took QB running back. Obviously, their O-line is fine. Corner was maybe a question they could have answered, and they didn't. But if Penix is good, Fontenot is there for a long time, because he did it. Again, they mentioned the Packer model, which awesome. Love that shout from them. If this works, they have the insurance if Cousins goes wrong. And they also have the franchise quarterback. Like yeah, if it works with Penix and he goes and dominates London and Pitts, and yeah, they got Mooney and stuff like that for kind of your flanker, your Z a little bit more, but you have Bijan Robinson, your O-line's solid. Like, if Penix can drive the train, they're going to be in good shape. They're going to be in good shape. And the pariah, in this case, Fontenot, 4 years ago it was Gutekunst. I mean, he turns into an icon for those fans, because they made the right call. Most people think it's the wrong call. Sometimes that's when you're the most correct, is when everybody is against this selection. You couldn't find an outlet who wasn't pleased with you couldn't find an outlet who was happy or was impressed with what the Packers did in 2020. It's the same right now in Atlanta. It doesn't matter what we think right now. If Penix hits, it's over. Fontenot should shred all of us for it. So I'm excited to see how Atlanta goes. Really am. The volatile potential win or lose right there. Okay, now for the teams who kind of, I think, struggled a little bit. I think if Brian Thomas Jr. does not work out for Jacksonville, might be it for Trent Baalke. I didn't like this at all. Truthfully, I thought there were better receivers than Thomas, first of all. I understand the idea of what Thomas is giving Trevor Lawrence, though. And so the process on that, I get it. That's fine. You sell me on that process, I'll buy. Okay? I'll be a buyer. My issue is after that, I pretty much despised everything. Like, Mason Smith is a defensive line swing with high upside and tools that only Trent Baalke would do at like pick 48. That's only a move Trent Baalke would make. And that's not a good thing to be saying. Like, man, at 48, Jerrion Jones, a lot of people liked him. I wasn't in. I really wasn't. I didn't see it. There were 2 elite games per PFF, and those things really pushed his grade up. And they were against like North Alabama, and I can't even think of the other. They were non-conference small school FCS teams. I'm just not sold in the third. Javon Foster, maybe. I didn't love it. I feel like he was a clunky mover at tackle. Jordan Jefferson, not really that moved. DeAndre Prince, not moved. Keelan Robinson had 12 carries last year, so that's interesting. And then, of course, Miles Cole and Mason Smith, the combo of those two, very bulky. Miles Cole's like 6'6", 278 with a ton of athleticism that is little to no production. Yeah, I feel like this could be really, really bad. And Trent Baalke could be done. Yeah, Tennessee, I'm sorry about this. I don't know. Latham at left tackle is going to be the real selling point of this draft, because Devondre Sweat, you took him that early after everything during the process. I don't know. Cedric Gray, fine. Brownlee, fine. But I'm really concerned there's no needle mover in this class. And I feel like you had pick 7, you had Fautanu, Fashanu, Fuanga. I'm just wondering if they're going to look back at this one and go, man, Tennessee continues to find ways to whiff at offensive line. And I think it's a whiff at 7 if Latham's a guard as well. I think that is a whiff if he only can play guard. And what you're telling and Tavondre, and yeah, if Cedric Gray's your best player from this class, as much as I liked Cedric Gray, had him as linebacker 4. I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like they lost it here. I really do. But they could be picking high enough to replace Levis next year, so could be the case. Miami Dolphins, we got to talk about you. I'm sorry. Sorry we got to talk about you, but we got to talk about you. these first two picks are really dicey for me. This puts you in that very volatile tier where it's like, okay, there was need in the trenches, offensive tackle, offensive guard, edge, defensive tackle. Like, the trenches were a big need. Chop Robinson's a very boom-bust, high-ceiling, really low-floor swing. And I get it. You were out of options in the first. I understand that. You didn't want Johnny Newton, huh? Didn't want him. Didn't want Graham Barton. Didn't want even Jordan Morgan, who went in the first. Didn't want Guyton. It's interesting. And then Patrick Paul, who I think has work to do in terms of using his length to be effective at tackle. Just the lack of interior offensive line swings didn't move me here. And Mo Kamara and Chop Robinson, that's fine on the edge. They didn't get, but the defensive tackle was ignored, or maybe just not ignored is maybe the wrong word to use, but like it wasn't addressed. They didn't, either get aggressive, move up for somebody. I think they had their chances too, though, and I know they don't have a ton of picks, but man, I like the playmaker trio: Jalen Wright, Malik Washington, Taj Washington. Malik Washington could be really good for them. Jalen Wright could be really good for them. But your draft isn't going to, unfortunately, be defined by Wright, Washington. It isn't. No matter if they're good, because it will be the same thing over and over again once you get into December, once you get into January. Can you win in the trenches? Check yes, check no. I think they're checking no still after this draft, after this offseason. I just don't see it. And Chop could be good. And Chop being good is fine because it gives you a really good three-man rotation there on the edge, especially because the other two are coming off injury. But still, man, they're going to get pushed around in the middle. They're going to get pushed around on their offensive line. Patrick Paul might not can play right away. And so, I get it. You're swinging at offensive tackle. We commend the Chiefs for doing that with Kingsley Suamataia, and you're going, why am I bashing the Dolphins? Well, I didn't really say anything about the Chiefs. But the Chiefs swinging there, too, has me a little concerned. I would have rather gotten Blake Fisher or Rosengarten especially, who I think could be, is a few months away from, we've got this thing rolling. I don't know. Miami did not enjoy it. I didn't. The Browns, the only reason they're on here, again, it's not fair they didn't have that many picks. I think Miles Harden might be their best. I liked Michael Hall a lot. I think he can contribute quite a bit. I'm just unsure on the rest of their swings. Hall and Zinter could really save this. I think they're both solid. So I can't fault. You know what? I'm putting Cleveland in the volatile tier with the QBs because I think Hall and Zinter are good swings. But if Hall's only a pass rusher and he doesn't, play every down and Zinter can't find it, they bet on another speedy, receiver, bet on an off-ball linebacker who probably needs to play further as far from the ball as possible. Miles Harden could be the best player from this class very easily. I'm not going to put him in the tier with Jacksonville, Miami, and Tennessee, but I'm going to throw him up there with those 4 QB tiers. Yeah, I gotta put y'all in here. I do. Carolina. Yeah. So Leggett, Brooks, Sanders, fine. Trading up for the running back, I'm not there with that. Leggett, big and fast, working to develop as a route runner. Jatavian Sanders, very linear player. I get it. You got Deontay, so maybe this is your way to supplant that. I'm okay with it. I think it could crash and burn, though. I know you went out and you went out and made some moves offensive line-wise, which I like. But if your guys don't bounce back, you didn't reinforce it well enough, like that could go downhill. I think it's same for the Giants too, where it's like, okay, Malik Neighbors really good. Love Malik Neighbors. Love Tyler Newman. Andrew Phillips, I think a good slot. Theo Johnson could really help at tight end. Tyrone Tracy, very interesting swing there. I just would have liked more offensive line looks here. They didn't address it. You know how I feel about that. I don't like it. I just, in this class, you didn't draft one. That's going to be a hard sell to me every time. So, there you have it. Across the board, teams I think potentially won or lost. Got some pretty big winners in there. Of course, the volatile tier that includes the Browns now with those QBs. I mean, this is it. It's lottery ticket season, right? That's what the draft is, and I'm excited to see how this all plays out. I can't wait for NFL season to get here to see, how these rookies do and where this, this episode in particular went wrong, because that's always a fun thing to look at. So thank you guys for joining and listening to the show today. There will be more, of course, coming out this week to wrap up this draft, and who knows, maybe we'll get crazy in here. And if one episode's a little shorter, throw out maybe a way to early 2025 look for you guys, but maybe got some plans for the summer. We'll see how everything shakes out. But enjoy your Tuesday. Thank you guys so much. See you soon.